everyone, Keith Carson here. Just want to update you on some severe weather we have going on across the state right now. We'll start with the broad picture and then we'll take a look at some individual storm cells. Severe thunderstorm watch in effect for a good part of the state, western Maine, central Maine, and southern Maine back into New Hampshire. Within that, we right now have quite a bit of activity, and you can see that we've got a couple of severe thunderstorm warned cells, and those are mostly on the southern edge of this line, and that's where we anticipate most of the action here. Certainly there will be thunderstorms to the north, but it'll be over the southern part that we're going to see the severe storms. So if we kind of go cell by cell here, we'll start down with this cell moving towards Sebago Lake. This is a severe thunderstorm warned cell. Now this hail size that you see on the screen is radar indicated. So an inch and a quarter hail is big hail. So likely it's not quite that big, but it is indicating that there is some hail associated with this cell as it moves towards Sebago Lake on the north side. We've had a couple of little systems go through Sebago, but this is the first big storm to come through. A lot of lightning, and we can put the hail tracker on it here just quickly. We'll take a look at see what the radar at least thinks is happening as far as the hail on this cell. And again, these are radar algorithms, so they're not people on the ground telling us how big the hail are. It's just a matter of this algorithm figuring out based on the reflectivity what you have for hail. So you can see the hail tracker does show some coming in. It doesn't show anything huge right now over the Sebago area, and that's where we're seeing those storms, the severe storm. There's another cell to the north that is a little bit more jumbled as far as its appearance, meaning that it's more connected with the larger line of showers and storms, and so it's a little bit harder to discern the severe part of this, but it looks like that is, they're warning this entire area on the back end towards Bridgeton. So if we pause this for a second at the top, we can take a tracker. These are moving about 40 miles an hour or so. And they're moving off to the north and east, so we can take a tracker to that and give you an idea in the top right there of where we're likely to see that cell impact. And it's starting with Casco at 408 and then Poland at 418. And again, this is not exact, but there's a lot of activity within this cell, but that's a good idea. Notice on the top left, the bottom area of text says threat, tornado possible. So this is a little bit of something the National Weather Service can do within a severe thunderstorm warning. They can tag something as TOR possible, which means they see some rotation in the cell, but not enough to warn it as a tornado warning. So that means there is a little bit of rotation, and we're going to check that out here in a second. Okay, so we'll use Bridgeton as our locator, and we'll zoom in and use this, which is our velocity product. This shows us where things are rotating. So let's look at that area here. And what we're looking for is a couplet of red and green close to each other. Now, there's red and green on this picture, but they're really broad areas. If there was something rotating, you would see a tighter looking kind of ball where you'd see a red and a green. I don't see that at this point, so that's good. There's broad rotation in that storm, but there's not anything that looks like a tornado. This down here is a little interesting. This shows at least some very strong straight line winds. So here we are again, just to orient you a little bit. Sebago is there. This is Route 11 here. I'm not familiar with this particular lake or pond, but that looks like it has some decent straight line wind. Let's just animate that and look at what's going on with it. So yeah, so that looks like that's a pretty decent little straight line wind area. And let's see if we can see that on radar. And again, you're all tracking this in real time, so you're taking the journey with me. These things evolve very quickly, and it's a matter of what they look like at that moment. So let's get down into that cell. We got to get way out of that zone down here, out of New Hampshire, and there we are. Okay, so what we're looking at is this cell right here, and yeah, that looks a little funky. So look at the south side of that right here. See how it has that little bit of kind of a backwards little hook on the bottom there, and that's we got 11 and 117. It's not automatic that is a rotation, but it does look a little bit like there's at least some strong straight line winds with that, and there could be some rotation. Let's go back to the velocity here quickly. Yeah, that's what we're looking for, by the way. This environment today is, as far as northern New England goes, fairly conducive to the possibility for a tornado. So it's all in context. We don't have really big tornado outbreaks, luckily. But today, the ingredients are there that we could see some storms that spawn tornadoes. So that's why we're going through these cells and looking for signs of that rotation. And that cell actually looks a little bit more tame just in the last couple of frames. I'm looking at that area blue. I'll get a pointer on this if I can here in 1 second. That area blue there is what my eye is on. Right there. So right there. We'll move that out of the way. See that area blue? That's why I'm looking at it, because that indicates faster wind speeds than the rest of the area. So those are either straight line winds or they could be a development of a couplet for a tornado, but I don't see any evidence of anything else that looks tornadic there, so that's good. All these cells, though, in this zone, especially in the Sebago Lake area, and some of them coming out of New Hampshire into York County, are coming into that high shear environment where things are spinning. So we're watching the front end of these for the possibility that we could get some rotation in them. Typically, not always, but typically you're watching the front end, and then by the time you get back into this rain shield, your chances of a tornado or really even as big a hail starts to decrease as you get away from that front edge. So let's just animate this quickly and take a look at the cells that are coming through. One thing we know for sure, these are severe cells, they're warned, but also they have a lot of lightning. So regardless, off the lakes, obviously Sebago and the Belgrade Lakes area also seeing some of these thunderstorms. By the way, to the north, as I mentioned, there are storms out there, but these are just, they're not in the same type of environment to produce as much severe weather. So if we put the hail tracker back on that cell was tagged with 1 1/4 inch hail. Again, you know, usually they're overdoing, the algorithm is overdoing the radar size, but you can see that particular cell does, in the opinion of this radar, have a history of putting down hail. So you're looking at that little white area and see how it's tracking in the same direction as the cell. So that's indicating that that cell is continuously putting down some version of hail, at least as it moves to the north and east. This algorithm actually I like better. It's putting down a 1/2 inch. I buy that. 1/2 inch hail is reasonable. Inch hail is pretty big. It's not unheard of, but it's pretty big across northern New England. And that other cell towards Bridgeton also seems to have a hail signature in it. And it's in the same ballpark. It's about a 1/2 inch or so. The hail tracker is putting it on. Got a few more in New Hampshire, heads to the north, and you don't really see much according to the hail tracker. Just to recap quickly, Storm Prediction Center has us in a 2% risk of a tornado. They've gone back and forth on this. So yesterday they had a 2% risk of a tornado. Then they upped it this morning to 5%, which you can see down still in northern Massachusetts and southern New Hampshire. A 5% risk of a tornado is a pretty big deal up here. So they've now updated it back down to 2%, which is, you know, not nothing, but it's a little less aggressive than what they showed earlier today. And if we look at the IBM graph model and take this forward here, we're in our area right now where we've got a lot of thunderstorms around. I would say this model's a tiny bit slow, right? Because we were just tracking those storms a little bit farther east than that. But they're moving quickly, 40 miles an hour or more. And so by 5 o'clock, we're very quickly getting to the coastline. 6 o'clock, we're getting into the mid-coast. And then according to this model, by 8, we're pretty much done as far as severe weather goes, potentially earlier if we get this line offshore. When the line exits south of Wiscasset, I'd say that's pretty much the end of the severe weather threat. Not that we couldn't have some strong storms in Bangor, for example, but I don't think we'll see, we don't have the dynamics for quite as much severe weather on the northern part of this zone. So we'll take one more tour here of the radar and take a look at what's going on. And again, all of these storms, even the non-severe ones, are dangerous in the sense of lightning. Here's the good news. We'll find a positive here. And I can say this before we have if we have a tornado warning, I have to stop saying this, but we did need the rain, right? And so some of these cells are capable of putting down 1.5 inches to 2 inches of rain. So that would be very helpful. Not enough to, you know, change the drought situation, but better than what we've been stuck in, which is just absolutely no rain. Look at the lightning with this one right over Sebago Lake. You know, I would hope people I know who are boaters on Sebago Lake are very attuned to the weather because they get some very gnarly storms that come in there, often from the northwest. And now we've got a lot of lightning going over the lake on probably a pretty busy Saturday. A lot of lightning up here too. Again, this is still Tor warned, but see that see that it says hail size 1 3/4. Again, these are like radar indicated, but 1 3/4 is massive hail. Like it's huge hail. It's down in Texas when you see on car lots they have to do like a hail dent sale. It's because of hail that big. So I would be very, very surprised if the hail were that big. But there's a core right here that looks like it does have big hail. Not 1 3/4, but decent sized hail. And that's moving right over Sebago. So that'll be pretty nasty there. We're going to continue to watch these cells. By the way, we have not had a tornado warning yet. Here in Maine, there have been several tornado warnings down in Massachusetts, just so you're aware. So look at that one. This is coming out of Worcester and into Marlborough. And just as an exercise, let's see if we can look at that. And I'll show you what we're talking about as far as rotation couplets go. So we're looking for, okay, right there. Let me pause this. Right there. See how we've got an area of green that brightens up to blue right next to an area of red. And that's when you talk about, these are the couplets that we talk about and look for as far as the potential for a tornado. So I'm showing you that obviously it's outside our viewing area. I'm showing it to you because it's kind of a learning exercise as to what kind of couplets, when I'm looking at this radar, that I'm looking for. And so this is an example of that where they're very close together. And if we zoom back out and go back up into Maine, it's quicker this way without the traffic, you won't see anything like that, right, at this point. You see broad areas of green and broad areas of red, but nothing indicating rotation. Okay, so our plan here today is that we will be back on streaming at 5 o'clock at the top of the hour. If there's a tornado warning, then we will be on the airwaves during the duration of that if there's a tornado warned system. So that's our plan. Check back in with us and we'll keep an eye on these storms as they continue to move off towards the coastline.